In 1954, Lyndon B. Johnson, a U.S. Senator at the time, added a rider to an IRS tax code that stated that all 501c3 organizations must stay out of the political arena. And he did this to silence two nonprofit groups, Facts Forum and Committee for Constitutional Government, because they were critical of Johnson's running for re-election. Consequently, Congress gave the IRS a mandate to restrict all 501c3 organizations from endorsing or opposing candidates for office or risk loss of their tax exemption. And in case you missed it, the Johnson Amendment was not intended for churches. Churches just so happened to share the same tax category as the two groups Johnson intended to silence. The Alliance Defense Fund, a Christian law firm based out of Phoenix, Arizona, they said churches have too long feared the loss of tax-exempt status. Rather than risk confrontation, pastors have self-censored their speech, ignoring blatant immorality in government and foregoing the opportunities to praise moral government leaders. Pastors who long to be relevant to society, to preach the gospel in a way that has meaning in modern America, often studiously ignore much that goes on in politics lest they draw attention of the IRS. So in September of 2008, the Alliance Defense Fund decided to challenge the Johnson Amendment with the help of over 30 pastors who would endorse or oppose candidates from their pulpits on the basis of biblical standards and then turn themselves into the IRS. And I was one of those pastors. And to expose IRS fallacy, the control that we believe they had, we recorded both audio and written documentation of our pulpit endorsements. We voluntarily provided the IRS with hard evidence of our supposed breach of the 501c3 mandate. ADF attorneys were ready to represent us in the court of law, but not one church, not one clergy member involved in the 2008 initiative faced prosecution. In fact, not one church has ever had its tax-exempt status revoked since the Johnson Amendment was passed over the content of a sermon, including the churches of the Reverend Jeremiah Wright and Reverend Jesse Jackson. The Johnson Amendment is not a law. It is a rider to a tax code that is unconstitutional, that is bribery, is government intrusion. It violates the Establishment Clause, the Free Speech Clause, the Free Exercise Clause, and I want you to understand that tax exemption is a necessary precondition for the free exercise of religion. The Founding Fathers made churches to be tax exempt so that the government could not ever tax churches out of existence. But when a Christian state senator like Gordon Howie calls upon pastors and churches of this state to do what Jesus did, to hold politicians accountable, and to endorse godly candidates from their pulpits, the media accuses him of telling pastors to break the law. I applaud that, because we need pastors, we need politicians who are more afraid of breaking God's law.
Amen.
Jesus solemnly warned, you cannot serve God and money. So even if the IRS could revoke a church's tax-exempt status, what would churches want more? Loss of tax deductions or continued loss of God's rule in the land? In the name of being law-abiding citizens, the vast majority of churches in America have chosen to serve money over God, and in the process, they have become accomplices to the hijacking of what was once a nation thriving on the law of God and the teachings of Jesus Christ. Now, I know many of you pray for revival and awakening in our nation, but it will not happen until we come to the same conclusions of the Reverend Charles Finney, who led in the Second and Third Great Awakenings. He said this: the church must take right ground in regards to politics. The time has come. The churches must vote for honest men and take consistent ground in politics. Christians have been exceedingly guilty in this matter. But the time has come when they must act differently. God cannot sustain this free and blessed country which we love and pray for unless the church will take right ground. It seems sometimes as if the foundations of the nation are becoming rotten, and Christians seem to act as if they think God does not see what they do in politics. But I tell you, He does see it, and He will bless or curse this nation according to the course Christians take in politics. Working with and correcting politicians was part of Jesus' earthly ministry. Why? Because Jesus is God, and God is the creator of law and government. I think He would care about law and government as a result. He was very, very direct with those in government. That is why repeatedly He would say, "You have heard it said," and then He would repeat one of the laws of His senators. And then He'd say, "But I say to you," and then He would interpret it correctly. God was very concerned in the person of Jesus Christ about those in politics. And that is why the most quoted sentence in your Bible is John 3:16, which says, "For God so loved the world that He gave," talking about Himself because Jesus was the one speaking this sentence, "that He gave me, His only Son, so that whoever would believe in Him would not perish, but have everlasting life." Do you know who He spoke that to? A politician. Nicodemus, a member of the Sanhedrin. He said that to his senator. And when Jesus was crucified, it was Nicodemus and another senator, Joseph of Arimathea, both members of the Sanhedrin. The first two Christians in politics. They're the ones who took Jesus' body off the cross and put it in a tomb that Joseph had prepared for himself. And a few days later, Jesus, who could have resurrected out of any tomb He wanted, I think He purposely resurrected out of a politician's tomb. And if the tomb of a politician can provide the environment for the resurrection of the King of Kings, the Son of God, there's hope for the U.S. government. As long as there are politicians who will put Jesus in it. And Jesus' body today is the church. Put the followers of Christ in politics and you'll be putting Jesus in the government. And it will not be long until there will be a resurrection of this country to godliness in every area of life. God bless you.